Since the beginning, I always use Figma for every kind of work that I had to do, whether it's was a client project or a personal project, didn't matter. I always use Figma, and yeah, I tried to switch from it to Adobe XD or Sketch or even Photoshop for my web designs, but yeah guys, I tried, but I cannot. It's a pretty good amount of time that I use Figma as my main software for every kind of work, so I think that I became a little bit good. So yeah, you will learn how to master the software, how to master Figma, so you will 100% nail every kind of project that a client will give you. So this is Figma, pretty simple, minimal and clear. As you can see, we have three main sections, actually four, but one is the workspace, so we count the three panels that are useful when you work in Figma. So in the left we see the layers and pages panel, and the name speaks by itself. So in this panel you can see all the layers and pages that you have created in your workflow and in your project basically, and you can see also the assets if you do prototyping in some of your projects. In the right we see the properties panel where we have design, prototype and inspect. This is the CSS of the design that you have done. I've never used it, so I don't know if it's useful. The design is basically where you can change all the properties of your element, for example the background color, the color of a shape, the letter spacing, the character spacing, every kind of property that you have of your element. At the top we find the toolbar. Here nothing new, you have seen these thousands of times, but here is very simple and clear. We have frames, the move tools of course, the frame, which we'll talk about in a second, the rectangle and shape tools, and as you can see it's really simple to learn and see all the keyboard shortcuts for all the elements, so it's really easy. It's not like Photoshop or Adobe Illustrator where you have to go in the menus in the top bar and see what is the shortcut for a certain tool. We have the pen and pencil tool, and I know that you know what this tool does, so basically you can create vectors and shapes, free shapes with this one. We have the text element, the hand tool, so with this one we can move the view of our project, and a really useful tool if you use Figma and if you work in a team. My dog, sorry. I was saying the comment tool is very useful if you work in a team or if you work with other creatives, because you can explain all your designs and all your elements, your choices with one comment or with multiple comments, but you add and you type, for example, I don't know, hello, this is my portion of design, and then you have the comments clicking, and you can see and click all the comments that you have in the design. So it's really useful, and I love it when I create and when I use Figma with other creatives. And now that I showed you and that you've learned how to move into the interface and what each panel does, let's see, and I'll show you how to do things and a little bit of my workflow when I work with Figma. As we saw in the UI tour, we have a tool called Frame, and this is basically where all the magic happens. And basically we drag a rectangle, and this is our canvas. This is where all our elements, our design elements are gonna be. Well, basically what we are gonna export in our final result and design. In the properties panel, we have the width and height of this canvas. I usually use 1920 by 1080, so a really nice and basic full HD. It's really good when you want to create, for example, a new section of a web page or a web design, and you can expand this frame later on, but this is the starting point for my first section of a website. And basically with the frames you have a lot of presets. If you press F for frame, you can see that you have iPhone 13, iPhone SE, iPhone 8, tablet, desktop, presentation, watch, and all this kind of presets that are available in Figma. So it's really cool when you want to speed up your process and you want to save a lot of time not looking for dimensions of your project or if your poster. You can press F, for example, for a poster I use paper, A4, and then you have your canvas. Next up is the background color. So in the fill I'm gonna change the color, pretty simple slider. You can change the colors, you can set an hexadecimal color and value, RGB, CSS, HSL, HSB. So you have a wide range of options. You can choose between solid, linear, so this is a gradient, a radial. So you have a lot of options that you can choose from if you for your background. This is a really cool effect. You have diamond, and then you have of course an image that you can replace choosing from, for example, your file manager or your desktop, your SSD, whatever you want. And a really important tool and fundamental tool that you need to use is basically the layout grid. So here you can create your grid where you can place later on your elements. For example, I use columns. I set 5 or 6 depending of the design that I want to do and that I have to do for my clients or for my personal project. The margin I usually use every time 20. It's gonna be in pixels, so 20 pixels. You can change the colors of the columns. You can also create another layer of a grid. I use rows, so I can create a custom grid system in Figma, and then you have your basic setup to start creating your projects. At this point, the only thing that remains is to put some content into our frame and to start building our project and our design. To add, I want to add the title and some text, so I go on the toolbar and I press the T, or we can press the keyboard shortcut, which is the T. We drag in our canvas basically a rough estimate of how big is gonna be the text and the title. We type, for example, title 1, I don't know. In the properties panel, we choose the text size. I usually use a big title, so if this is my style, you can do whatever you want. We place the text where we want, for example, right here, following the guidelines, the gaps in our grid system. To copy an element without doing the famous Command C and Command V, or for Windows users, Control V and Control C, we can hold on our keyboard Option or Alt on Windows, and then we can drag our element wherever we want, and then we have a perfect copy of our element. This is gonna save you a lot of time because you don't always have to do Command C and Command V, so which is basically annoying. In the properties panel, choose again the text size. In this case, I'm gonna do 24 pixels. I'm gonna move my element inside my grid and follow the guidelines of my grid, so everything is gonna look in place. If you want to change the color and the feel of the text, super easy. You go in the properties panel, you choose fill, and then you can change the color like that. Very simple. Another thing is super annoying to always have the grid system visible. I have a shortcut for you to show and hide the grid system. So basically on Mac you can hold the Control and press G to show and hide the grid system. When I learned and when I found this shortcut, I use it every time because it's so useful, and I don't always have to go in the right panel, in the properties panel, and click on the eye icon, so to show and hide the grid system. Last thing about text elements in Figma, you select both, and of course you have to choose a font or a typeface. You go in the properties panel, you go under text, and then you have all your typefaces and fonts that you have. You click on one and it's gonna be applied on all the selected elements. Now that we have done with text elements, it's useful to know how to place images inside your design and in Figma. Don't worry, it's very simple, super fast. You basically need to download an image, then you go into your Finder or for the Explorer, File Explorer. You take the image, you drag, and then you have done, and you have your image. To resize the image, you need to take the corners and drag them until you find the perfect size that you want. At this point, we have something to work with. It's not super cool, super fancy, but yeah, it's something. One more advanced thing that I want to show you, but it's super cool and super easy to do, is how to apply a texture on your design for example, a paper texture, a plastic scratches, and all this kind of effects directly into Figma. It's pretty simple, and let me show you in 2 seconds. The only things that you need to do to I'm laughing because it's really simple. The only things that you need to do is to download an image as paper texture from the internet, preferable and high quality texture. You put the texture over your design and you make sure that you cover the entire design. Then you go into the properties panel under layer, and this is the blending mode of the layer, and try to take the right one for your design. Sometimes you can go with screen, sometimes you can go with soft light, depending on your needs and the hardness of the effect. For example, I go with screen. As you can see, this is not good. We go with soft light. This is definitely better, and then you have this beautiful paper effect. So really simple, use it because it's super cool and looks really professional. The fucking microphone. So guys, that's basically it. This was the basics of Figma, how to use it, the interface, some shortcuts that allows you to speed up your process. And if you stick around till now, thank you very much for your time, I really appreciate it. So I hope you found this video helpful, guys. If so, smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, don't forget it, it's free. And let me know in the comments down below if you want another video about Figma, shortcuts, tips, and yeah, I see your smiling face in another video.